Okay, so I've been meaning to do this for quite a while now, and I think right now is the best time to do it. So this question and answer is a bit more based on electronic dance music type of production. So I apologize if I can't cater to the other styles, but I promise that the majority of the answers in this will still work for most of the genres. So all of these questions are from ChatGPT, and they go as follows. What is music production? For those who don't know, music production is just basically the process of composing, sometimes writing and also arranging music in a software. This is usually done in a DAW in a linear timeline sequence. What is a DAW, digital audio workstation, and how do I choose the right one? Okay, a DAW is a software that comprises of functionality that lets you, the user, generate, shape, and manipulate sounds, and it lets you arrange multiple sounds together that form elements of a song, and it lets you control the volume levels of each element and lets you record instruments, maybe even vocals, to shape a full song. You know, like MS Word lets you type things out and arrange it in a specific format. Adobe Photoshop lets you manipulate photos to however you want it to look, but it also lets you create an image from scratch, you know, like a lot of digital artists use. DAW is kind of the same, but it's for like music. How to choose the right one. Okay, so there's no right or wrong in this. Music is art, not science. Sure, there's science involved in it, but something that sounds good to me might sound trash to you. Like your buddy Drake and Travis Scott, to me, that's utter garbage. To you, that's like music of the gods, so there's no right or wrong. And hence, you can pick up and choose almost any DAW on the market. However, I'd like to say these are some of the better ones out there. So there's FL Studio, there's Ableton Live, there's Logic Pro. Logic Pro is Apple only. PreSonus Studio One, Bitwig is a new and upcoming one. There's Steinberg's Cubase, Reason Studios. There's also GarageBand. Okay, GarageBand is great, but it's extremely limiting. It's a good start, but it's not going to give you the full width of tools that let you do a lot of things. So I would not recommend it highly, but yeah, again, look, in the end, it's the user and not the software. How do I get started with music production? Okay. Literally just download one of the DAWs that I just mentioned, experiment with them. I would highly recommend FL Studio as it's unquestionably the most intuitive, easiest to learn, and has one of the best, if not the best, user experience design, which helps a beginner learn the software faster. Hopefully you have a laptop or a computer to install it on. Please don't produce on a mobile phone, even if you're starting out. There's no music production on a mobile phone, no matter what anyone tells you. I'd rather you wait to get a laptop or a computer than not produce at all. You'll be limited with a mobile to the point that you'll be probably giving up and never getting to experience the real fun of making music on a computer. So if you have one, download one of the DAWs and experiment with it. More information on this later in the video. What is MIDI and how is it used in music production? Okay, MIDI is musical instrument digital interface, which is a long term that no one really uses. And basically what it does, it lets you use a MIDI device to generate data that sends information to a computer and then the computer generates the sound for you. Here I have these keyboards in my studio. None of these keyboards generate sounds of their own. These are what you call MIDI keyboards. They connect to your computer and on the press of a key, they tell the computer to generate the sound, whatever sound you've chosen in your DAW. The keyboards that generate sounds of their own, they're called Workstation keyboards or arranger keyboards. They usually have sounds baked in and programmed into them, which means there's a chip that has sounds programmed in them, which means they're limited in how you can shape and tweak them. And because computers are always being updated because they have to follow like a basic standard, the digital music industry decades ago decided that MIDI standard would be great to have and have the computer generate the sound. I hope that makes sense. Which software is the best for music production? Okay, the best software is the one you master. Most of the top DAWs will let you do pretty much everything you want. How can I learn to use music production software? Okay, this is my favorite question. Dissect the demo songs that come with it, which means Ableton is out. I don't think Ableton has any demo songs in it. I don't know why. There's plenty of great demo songs in FL Studio that you can open up and tinker with to understand what clips are placed where and why. That's one way. Another one, this is one of my absolute favorites, is try to make cover songs in the software you're using. Okay, allow me to explain. A song consists of two parts, writing the song and sequencing or arranging the song. When you're creating a cover in the DAW, the writing part of the song is already done for you because someone else has already written the song, as opposed to you creating a song from scratch. So go ahead and take a simple song that you like and try to recreate it. Don't worry about how close it sounds to the original, just make sure that you finish the song. Then move on to the next song. Do this for about 5 to 10 songs. On this journey, you will need to Google and tinker and experiment on how to do certain things. This is how you'll learn the best way possible on how to operate a DAW, I promise. Okay, so there's a third way, which is to watch YouTube videos. I mean, you can certainly do that, and you should. Do this in supplement to the first two methods that I just mentioned, and I promise you, you will learn really fast. How can I create a home studio for music production? For starters, all you really need is a laptop or a computer and a DAW. If you want to go further, I'd recommend an audio interface and a MIDI keyboard. Here's a list of few audio interfaces that are good for a start. Here's some MIDI keyboard options. How do I record vocals and instruments in music production? Okay, so to record vocals and instruments, you'll definitely need an audio interface. For vocals, you can get a microphone. For an instrument, say for example an electric guitar, you'll just need the guitar and a TRS cable that sort of connects the guitar to the audio interface. How do I mix and master a song? Okay, so this comes later in the music production stages, but for a brief overview, you want to manage the audio levels of each track and element of your song until the balance sounds right. And most importantly, please use a reference track. Pick a famous, well-mastered track that you like and a track that already sounds similar to your song that you're creating in your DAW. Drag it into your timeline and use it as a reference, especially for volume, just so you know that your song isn't too loud or quiet. I'll make a whole video about how to reference later down the line too, but this is a gist of how to do it. How do I make my music sound professional? You want to make sure you're using high quality sounds. I personally love using Splice. I use it religiously. There's a few other sample libraries that you can feel free to look into. Lander is another one that's great, or you can mix and match from different artists that sell their samples. I just love the convenience and variety that you get from Splice. What is sampling in music production and how does it work? Okay, sampling is basically the technique of taking a portion or a sample of a sound recording and reusing it in different song or piece of music. The sample portion can be as short as a single note or a drum hit, or it can be more extended section of music. Sampling is also a fundamental aspect of various music genres, including hip-hop, electronic, and pop. There's often legal consequences with this though, so use with caution. That in itself is a whole another dedicated video that we can cover another time. How do I get my music on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music? For this, you're going to need to use something that's called a distribution service. I personally have been using DistroKid and I've been extremely happy with them. Video's not sponsored by them. I've compared a ton of other services and DistroKid's service has pretty much been the best. There's also Amuse, which is free, AWAL, CD Baby, Ditto, Lander, etc. Most of these are subscription-based services, so it's a yearly payment. Once you've subscribed, you can upload your single or an album with an album art, and the service will be uploaded to the streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, etc. Again, this is a whole different video that we can get into at a later stage if people are interested. How can I overcome creative blocks in music production? Okay, some of my favorites in this include literally just stepping away from the studio because you probably got listener's fatigue. You can also just casually go for a walk. That reminds me of this famous quote from Austin Kleon. He's a creative himself. Creative people need time to sit around and do nothing. Also, sometimes I'll just browse samples on Splice. This app is conveniently available on mobile also. If you're out and about and you feel like you gotta kill some time checking out some samples, you've got the option. Another one I love is listening to demo tracks of sample packs. They're almost always guaranteed to get me ideas. Another one is listening to other artists. Look, majority of the people are inspired by listening to musicians of similar genres like their own. But try and expand your listener's palette and I promise you, you'll get great ideas. How can I improve my music arrangement skills? Watch a lot of YouTube tutorials on YouTube. See how other producers utilize their DAW to create what they create. Copy their workflow, see if that works for you. You'll have to do a lot of experimenting in this to see if this works for you. And you will have to do it yourself. You can't just watch the YouTube tutorial and then call it a day thinking, oh, you've learned it. It's a creative field. You're almost exclusively learning only by copying and emulating. What is the role of EQ, equalization, in mixing? Okay, this is essential. Equalization is basically just shaping the frequencies of a sound or multiple sounds to either add or subtract frequencies. This could be done for creative or technical purposes. It is especially great to make your overall song's mix sound cleaner. One of the most highly recommended techniques is cutting out frequencies that aren't required, but the sound produces them anyway. For example, a kick is mostly low end in the spectrum, which means you could tone down the higher frequencies, which will then pave the way for other elements of the song to take up that space instead of fighting it with the kick. Again, this is one of those topics that should be dedicated for a whole different video one day. What is compression and how should I use it in music production? Oh my god, okay, yeah, this took me the longest time to understand as well. Let's say a vocal recording has parts where the voice can be soft and low in volume, but other parts can have loud singing with higher volume. In an ideal situation, you would want to normalize the volume levels across the whole track so the dynamics aren't insane. It becomes unpleasant for the listener. So instead of manually having to normalize the audio levels piece by piece, a compressor will do it for you just in an automated way. You can define a threshold, which if the audio signal hits, it will lower the volume by the ratio that you define. That's sort of the general gist of it. What are VST plugins and which ones are essential for music production? Okay, so VST plugins are basically just digital synths that generate or shape sounds. They either come in synth or effect formats. So you know how we have expensive hardware synths that come with built-in chips that generate sounds that we just spoke about earlier? VSTs are basically that, but in digital form. Oh, and VST stands for Virtual Synth Technology. Really kind of gives it away. Some of my personal favorite VSTs are ReFX Nexus, Revealed Sound Spire. I personally use this for majority of my tracks. Spectrasonics Omnisphere, Yuhi's Zebra 2 and Diva, very nice vintage synth. Yuhi's Hive, Arturia's Analog Lab, Native Instruments Contact. This is especially great for pianos. I personally use this for pianos. Serum is not really big in my list for some reason. I haven't been able to find any good presets for it. And sure, I'm not the greatest sound designer and I do have to rely on presets a lot of the time, so. And in the effects section, there's FabFilter's Pro Q3 for EQing, Valhalla Room for reverb. I actually love this one. Usually stock delay plugins work well for me, but Yuhi's color copy is pretty great. Voxengo Span for visual sound monitoring. Entara's AutoTune Pro for autotune. Sometimes Melodyne, but I don't use that much right now. OCS 45, it's great for lo-fi processing. Kilohertz effects are fantastic. Native Instruments Isotope series, these are fantastic for mastering that I've recently jumped on and I absolutely cannot live without this now. OTT is another lifesaver, especially amazing for drums. The list can go on honestly. I try to minimize the amount of third-party effects I use and try to use stock plugins if possible, since they do almost exactly the same thing, but are also not as heavy on the CPU as third-party plugins. What is sidechain compression and when should I use it? Okay, sidechain is when a sound ducks in volume, normally for creative purposes, to make room for another sound. The most frequently used combination is kick and bass. The bass line ducks for a second to create room for the kick so they don't both clash. This gives the song a nice pumping sound. How can I make my drums sound more dynamic and punchy? EQing and compression and limiting. The right combination of all three will give you a solid punch in your drums. Also, make sure you gain stage your audio levels, one of the most important techniques I've learned in recent years. How do I approach remixing a song effectively? There's no wrong or right in this. I'll just tell you how I personally like to remix a song. Depending on how many elements I like from the original song, I try to keep in mind that I want to try add elements of my own. For example, sometimes I'll just use the main lead of the song, the rest I will create of my own and not copy. For example, Mihawek and I remix Don't Be Scared by DJ Hashish. If you listen to the original, and if you listen to the remix, they're kind of wildly different. But that's just my approach. You can get the feel for it and remix however you want. How can I stay inspired and motivated in my music production journey? Keep listening to new and updated music. Don't stick to a few genres, expand your listening gamut. Listen to something beyond Kanye and Drake. Like, they're not the only musicians in the world, as hard as it may be to believe. Draw inspiration from films, TV shows, and other forms of art. Consume media intentionally. Watch good movies, watch TV shows. Sure, that's subjective, but look up lists on IMDb or Letterboxd for inspiration. Hang out with other musicians that you look up to or that inspire you. What is the importance of mastering in the music production process? To quickly explain, mastering is the final stage in music production. That is the process of finalizing a song's overall EQ and sound levels overall in order to achieve better quality and clarity and just make it sound clean and polished. It is not a band-aid solution to a bad mixdown. I myself was under the impression that mastering will fix a lot of the issues in my song. Contrary to popular belief, mastering makes a very subtle change to your song. And for that to be impactful, your track before mastering needs to already sound great. If your track sounds good, mastering can only make it slightly nicer. But if your track sounds great, mastering would make it amazing. The foundation is very important. Okay, with that being said, thank you for sticking around. Hopefully I answered questions that you had. If you have any more, please feel free to write them down in the comments. If they're super simple, I can just answer them in replies. Thank you again. Be seeing you.